The emotions that run your brain have a hard job, and sometimes their mental breakdowns turn into your mental breakdowns.
Welcome to the Walt Vault with
Michelle,
Andre,
Louise.
and me, Emily. We're a family-friendly podcast where we pick a new Disney movie each week. We watch it, share our thoughts, and then relate it to pop culture, fandoms, and anything else that pops into our heads. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to the Walt Vault, episode 78.
We're retired.
we've been retired, girl.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Like 10 years ago.
We're getting close to the
yeah.
end. Of
We're moving on to greener pastures. What are we talking about?
We're going to have to take up Buddhism.
We
should
have done the Haunted Mansion for the 100th episode. Right? Dead.
Dead.
We're dead.
We're dead.
Dead.
So
Thank you for joining us. We are not dead, but we are emotional. Can you tell? It's because we watched the 2015 animated movie made by Disney Pixar, Inside Out.
That's not even why I'm emotional.
Well, I'm sorry. I was trying to ad-lib because it looked like Andre didn't know if he was ready or not.
I couldn't
This is
open
emotional because it's a
browser.
Monday, okay? And yes, this movie is a movie about emotions and turning your emotions inside out.
Emily, this whole movie is the feels. How did you even get through 5 minutes?
I
of
know.
it?
I asked her that earlier.
She walks in the door and she's like, "So did you watch the movie?" I'm like, "Yes, I watched the movie.
I was like, "Are you okay?"
It's part of the homework." Jeez. Yeah, you guys, I'm living. I made it. I was completely distracted the whole time I watched this movie. So I didn't cry, but did I feel things? Yes. Was I mad about it? Sort of. I will explain the
yes.
sort of.
But it was still cute.
Yes. So, first impression, Emily, I'll ask myself. My first impression of this movie was that it was really good. It's a very good movie. I liked it the first time I watched it, which was when it came out-ish. I don't remember if I saw it in theaters or not, but anywho. I liked it then, but I like it more now. Just I think I'm older. Well, obviously, I think I'm
older.
I think I'm a little older than I was 3 years ago or 4 years ago. But just I've been through a lot of different life experiences. I've experienced a lot of a lot more of the emotions that bugged me the first time I watched this movie.
Yes.
So I'm less bugged by the characters than I was. And so I kind of appreciate it more for what it is, even though it's emotions of a child. It totally transcends to every one of us, I think. So I really liked this movie a lot this time.
Yeah.
What about you, Michelle?
I liked this movie since the first time I watched it. I was a psychology major in college, so the things that we talk about in psych classes rolled over into this, like learning about the brain, and I was like, I just cussed. I was like, oh man, this is accurate.
I really like how you moderated that.
Thankfully,
it's
with this
very
new app, I
accurate,
can bookmark the exact moment
and
that happened.
I think some people didn't like this because it went too much into all of these different aspects of thought and emotions and all this craziness, but that's why I liked it.
Oh no, I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
I think it's so clever and very original. I know I usually hate on Sadness. We'll get into her. I don't hate her as much as I used to. But it's just a very clever, well-written movie that I very much enjoy.
Yeah.
Andre?
Agreed, basically. It is very well written. I really like the concept, the whole idea of living with the characters inside your head and how your emotions can control you. And how you don't have to let your emotions control you and stuff like that. It's all really good. And it's funny. I think I did see this in theaters when it came out, and it's only been 4 years since it came out. But I feel like I appreciated Sadness a lot more upon this viewing.
Yeah, we all did.
Time.
Yeah, we're a bunch of haters.
I remember yelling at Sadness like a lot.
We were at the beginning when we were watching it, and then I was like, "Fine, she's fine. It's fine."
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you Luisa's first impression because we did watch this movie together with the girls. And it was funny because Luis has, from the beginning, 100%, just like Andre just said, has been like the number one hater on Sadness. You guys probably know because we've talked about it a lot. Like the first year that we went to the Mickey's Halloween party together.
I think it was like in 2016, like the year after this came out.
Yeah, it was right after it came out.
Yeah.
We dressed up as the characters. Luis obviously was anger. I was
Obviously.
I was disgust. Michelle was joy, and Andre was fear. We totally rocked it. Like people knew what we were, even though we were kind of Disney bounding
We
it.
did great.
It fit our personalities. It was really fun. But we didn't have sadness, and Luis was like, yes, because Dennis is stupid. We left her at home, like blah blah blah. He just can't stand her.
And then we kept like thinking like, should we get a blue balloon?
And just like follow it behind us.
We're like, nah, sadness doesn't belong in Disneyland. It's the most happiest place on earth.
But it's funny
we
because
were haters.
we totally were haters. But this time around, he said the same thing. He was like, oh wow, like I mean, she shouldn't be doing what she's doing, but still.
But still, like, I
Gosh,
get
is
it.
this when
Okay.
we're growing up? Ew,
Yeah,
gross.
I know, totally. Like, wow, we're maturing. I thought I was an adult 4 years ago. I
Nah,
guess
Guess
not.
not. Guess not.
Not yet.
No. Oh,
Ugh.
Next time I watch it, I'll appreciate anger more. I'm like, oh yeah.
Dude, no, I love anger.
he's so good.
So
though.
I think that's a good place for us to start. So there's 5 main emotions.
Core emotion.
Yes, there's these 5 main emotions that take on the persona of, I guess, like a blob. I'm just gonna call them different blobs, and they're different
Little
colors,
blobs.
and they have different personalities, and their personalities are their emotions. So we have Joy, who is played by Leslie Knope.
Poehler.
No, I'm just kidding.
Seriously,
Have you been watching that show now?
I have.
Oh, it's so
So
good.
stupid, but it's
very
really
funny.
No, you can't tell me it's not stupid.
It's so good.
We're talking about Parks and Rec,
Parks
people.
and Rec,
It's
baby.
so good. And The Office. Hello,
Phyllis.
Sadness. Phyllis.
Phyllis plays sadness.
Luis insists on calling it Parks and Recreations. Parks and Recs.
Parks
Oh
and
my
Rec.
There's not
gosh.
multiple Recs, Lou.
You go to parks, you do recreations.
Jeez, I
That's
love
hilarious.
it when he's not here, so I can harp on him.
Right?
Yeah, Phyllis Smith played Sadness, who also played Phyllis on The Office. And Amy Poehler plays Joy. And
Anger is.
Anger is played by Louis Black, who is a stand-up comedian. You probably remember him
They're
from,
basically all
from the
comedians.
George Bush days. And then Bill Hader played Fear.
And Disgust.
Bill Hader was on SNL, and then Disgust was played by Mindy Kaling from The Office as
They're
well.
all
Yes.
comics, and they all kind of know each other, which I appreciated more upon this watching. And they are spot on to their emotions. Like
Yeah.
they do a fabulous job, and I really can't decide who I like the best or like the least because they're just all so very entertaining. This time, I think I definitely identified a lot with Fear,
Yeah.
just like a lot this time, like
Fear
more
and
than
Anger
I
with my
noticed.
homies.
More than I noticed upon my other watchings, because I'm just like the most worrywart person in the world, and I was like, dang, Fear understands me this time around.
Well, it's funny too
Ugh.
because if you take like the idea of being like you were saying, if you take the idea of like, oh my god, it bothers me when someone's like is fearful or whatever. If you take all of that out of your own personal like feelings towards them, they, like you said, it's masterfully written.
It's
It's
so
masterfully
good. It's so
Really well
funny.
done.
creative. They did such a good job. Everything about it is like, I think my favorite part of it, and I'm gonna like insert to what you're saying, is that how the emotions are the same age as Riley, the same
Yes.
maturity level.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So even though you see like this quote unquote like middle-aged angry man, like in anger, he's really like a 7-year-old or 11-year-old or
Can I say that curse word now?
that one word we know, or like, oh, and then like disgust. Oh my god, it's not dinosaur shaped or brightly colored.
Yeah.
It's broccoli.
Ew, gross.
Like,
Literally
Broccoli.
hilarious.
it's funny because they look like adults,
Yes.
and they're totally adults playing kids, emotional, like at that maturity level
Yeah.
too. It's just so masterful. They did such a
it's
good
very
job.
well done. And then you get to see into the adult heads at some point too,
Oh.
and those are amazing. Like you
Andre
see
was
how,
dying.
You see how
Dying.
much more like put together those those emotions are in their heads, and
Much more controlled, but also still so rooted in
Yes.
the same.
still exactly the same.
They're exactly the same,
Mhm.
but just more controlled to that person.
I think the
Yes.
thing that cracked me up the most is there was a bus driver, and all 5 of his people were angers, but they were just all different colored angers. I was like, dang.
So good.
And they
So
all their heads catch on
good.
fire. At the
dude,
same
I want
time.
to talk about that so much more, but we need to
I
go
know, we need to
plot
go
line.
through the
I
film.
But
know,
when
I
we
know.
hit there, I am gonna just lose it. Like I might pee my pants again because I'm pretty sure I
On-
eked out a little bit when the mom and the dad were doing
when
their
they're-
thing.
when they're
Oh my
arguing?
god,
Oh, it's
Luis and I kept
fantastic.
looking at each other like, oh my god,
Oh.
oh my god, oh my
It's
god,
hilarious.
oh my god.
It's so good. Okay, yes. So, starting at the beginning of the movie.
Hold on, no, I'm gonna pause.
Oh,
I mean, well, no, you don't gotta like actually pause. I'm just pausing because
Luis is here.
bum bum bum.
He's here.
Anger is here.
Anger
Anger has
himself.
entered the
And
building.
I'll have you know that
I'll have you know.
every time we went to Disneyland last weekend and the little Inside Out ride is open, which is just Flick Flyers. But I'll also have you know that Flick Flyers was way better than this ride. I miss Flick Flyers, but there was the little Anger like animatronic, and he's like, rah, 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 you know, and I was like, oh, there's Louise.
You're just mad because you like the takeout, and that's why you're upset.
Right. They got rid of that little Chinese food box. Yeah, I mean, I like Chinese food too.
And just so you know, Michelle is talking. She's just not talking into the mic because we are now eating ice cream. So, you know,
yeah.
it's called priorities, y'all.
I was thinking about getting us like mic stands today earlier at work.
We ate a lot.
But then I was like, we don't sit at tables. I'm the only one who's at a table right now. Everyone's on the floor. Michelle is deep into a couch.
Table.
Louise is standing across the other side of the room. So
without the mic. And
so
you know, for an entire year and a half, we did this podcast sitting at the table
like idiots.
Well, I was gonna say like very dedicated people.
Oh.
And then when I got pregnant, I was like, I can't
couch.
sit.
And Andre and I were like,
sit here anymore.
Couch it is.
because let's be real, Andre and I are lazy pieces of poop. We just don't
Whoa!
like
you just took yourself to a
How
whole
dare
nother
you.
level.
Anyways,
Whoa.
I'm the most
Louise,
hardworking individual
we
you
were
know.
talking about how there's 5 different emotions, and they're all really great in their each individual ways, and how when we first saw this movie, all of us were hating on sadness, but we don't necessarily hate on her anymore.
Don't speak for me.
How do you feel about sadness,
Look
Louise?
at his face.
You look kind of sad, honestly.
I never thought I could hate any character as close to as much, if not equal to me hating Olaf.
Oh,
But she's it.
Dang.
She's the
Okay,
one.
I thought she had softened your heart a little bit. Hoy caramba.
Nah, dude.
Nah, I'm still pissed at her. She's pretty moronic,
Hey,
but
there's no room for sadness
I,
in Louise's
what
heart.
softened my heart was more the overall movie. She's still DAB.
Even when she talked to Bing Bong?
Bing bong, bing bong. Who's your friend who loves to play?
What conversation did she have with him?
Wow.
Bing Bong is sad.
Bing
and
Bong was
then
sad.
Sadness comes up. She's like, I know it must be hard
To be
being
sad.
forgotten and being sad, and it's sad. He's like, yeah, it is pretty sad. I feel better now. Because she made him feel better.
Because she validated his feelings
And she listened.
Huh.
Let it out, you know?
versus trying to be happy over the top of
That
something.
didn't
that's
happen in the
unhappy.
version I saw. So.
Oh my
She's still
god!
DAB.
You know what she heard?
That
You know
scene was
Louise heard
cut.
wah 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 when she was talking. All right, let me do some plot. Okay, I'm dying for some plot.
Okay.
Hit us with it.
Literally, there's the opening scene is it's kind of a long opening segment, but the idea is that the emotion sprung to life from the moment that Riley was born. And the
Yes.
first emotion that she had was joy. And I don't know if like every person has a different like starting emotion, you know what I
Maybe.
mean? How like mom's was like sadness and dad's was
Sadness,
anger.
yeah.
Did they pop up with that character? I don't know. But Riley's was
I like
Joy.
that. Because, yeah, Joy is definitely like the ringleader because she was like the first emotion.
Right.
exactly. So she's the one who kind of runs the place in her very joyful way, in her Lindsay Nopeness. And
Leslie,
it's
no.
whatever. Lindsay, she's stupid either way, but whatever.
Whatever.
Leslie, Michelle's very upset. She Leslie's, and it's fantastic because you get to see the little moments of Riley growing up. Very quickly, just how she interacts with her emotions and how the different emotions control different aspects of her life. They explain, I think in a pretty simple way, the very like interconnected dynamics of what the brain
Of your
looks
brain,
like.
Yeah.
And
pretty
how
cool.
the different emotions and the different core memories fuel different parts of your personality. And that they could have made it much more convoluted, but I thought it was actually done pretty succinctly.
They pared down the human brain to a very succinct and specific
and
kind of
smartly
mode.
And
done.
very
Yeah.
accurate.
And and I think it's interesting too, like if I wish you guys could see my notes, like I might take a picture and post it just because I like drew the entire way that like quote unquote headquarters is and where the different lines from the core memories into the personality islands are. It makes sense geographically, even though our brains aren't particularly like built that way, I guess.
Yeah.
But it makes a lot of sense. So anywho, so we go through that whole segment. We understand now like that she has emotions and how her personality develops. And the whole plot is just completely stopped from this little happy-go-lucky girl because her family is moving from Minnesota to San Francisco. And her
She's
entire
11 now.
Yes. She's 11 years old and her entire life is now thrown into a frenzy because everything she knows and loves is being left behind.
Very accurate.
12?
Is she 12?
No, she's
I thought
11.
She was 11. But
Louise thinks she's 12.
I think
but, yeah.
all of her core memories are from her early childhood, and they're all happy. They're all joyous. Joy is responsible for all of her core memories up until this point. And now that this major shift in her life has changed, her emotions are acting differently than they were before. So sadness is just getting into stuff. She's just like, hey, let me touch this. Hey, let me look at this. Hey, let me take control right now. Hey, let me do all
Complex
everything.
emotions start emerging around that age. So it's like way less simplified.
Yeah.
So sometimes you could think about memories from your childhood past that one time were joyful, and the next time you think about them, you're like, that was sad. That wasn't happy at all.
That's
So that's
exactly
like
what
where the
happens.
complex emotions started coming in, and joy is basically like, what the heck? Stop touching things. You're
Mhm.
ruining Riley.
The
or whatever.
the 5 core emotions they got from some psychologists that they consulted with, but there were actually 6 core emotions. It was anger, fear, sadness, disgust, joy, and surprise. But Pete Docter, the director, he said that surprise was pretty close to fear, so they cut it out. and
Well, I could
focus
see
on the
surprise
5.
being kind of like put into each of the emotions in different ways.
Yes, exactly.
Because you could be like surprised disgusted or
Mhm.
surprised
Surprise angry.
scared or yeah, surprised angry,
Mhm.
depending on like what expression you're most in tune with, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
He said that he found surprise and fear to be too similar, which left him with 5 emotions to build characters around. Other emotions considered for inclusion during the development process were Schadenfreude, ennui, pride, and hope. Hold on.
NUI?
Let's look at the Wikipedia for ennui, which is boredom. Boredom.
Could they not have just said boredom?
They also put Schadenfreude in here, which is the experience of pleasure, joy, or self-satisfaction that comes from learning of or witnessing the troubles, failures, or humiliation of another.
Oh, that's mean.
I'm so happy.
I'm
that
glad that we're
you're
working with
upset right
11-year-olds.
That
Yeah.
sounds
happy
like it
kids.
would be a
It's too complex
a
for an 11-year-old.
DC or a Fox movie.
now. Right? Yeah, that's
Yeah, awkward.
some
But-
sad Superman moves.
What I really like is on a day-to-day, most of Riley's memories are joyous. So most of the memory bulbs are yellow. But as soon as they start going to San Francisco, there's like maybe 2 yellow bulbs in there. It just cracks me up.
And the rest of the day is purple, green, red, purple, green, blue,
Yeah.
blue, red, green, purple, white. And it's funny because as you go through this, because the emotions are freaking out in her head, like you said, the bulbs are the different colors based on their emotion. But it's funny because Joy is trying to color the like I guess figuratively and metaphorically trying to color the situation more positively. But the other emotions are just taking over. You know, the house is funky. Like, I mean, she could have been like, this is a really cool attic
Yeah.
room. I don't know. But they're freaking out. So they don't like the room.
It's cool because like Joy has been the centerpiece of her emotional life up to this point. And now Joy is taking a real far back seat, and she's just a tiny little voice at the back of her head, whereas her other emotions are much louder, much clearer now. I was thinking about this while watching it this time that I didn't think about last time. But like, in the first time I was watching, I was rooting for Joy the entire time. I was like, yeah, let's get this girl happy. Let's do it. Let's do it up. But watching it this time, I was like, I can't imagine. I don't even know what it would be like to just be happy all the time.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense for a brain to behave that way almost, you know?
No.
Ditto.
Or at least not my brain, you
No,
know?
for
There's
sure.
No way.
Well, and especially if you think, I think Michelle hit the nail on the head. When you're, I don't want to say prepubescent, that sounds awful, but when you're when you're preteen, your hormones are really starting to kick in. And of course, we're not talking straight hormones, but feelings, emotions, all of those things all play into the same vein here. And things do get more complicated. You don't just look at like, oh my gosh, I love this puppy, everything is great. Like, there are other consequences to, decisions, and things are much more complicated. So it's actually, like you said, it makes so much more sense that she has the other emotions getting in there, because this isn't an ideal situation for her. Right. And it's not, it would be weird if she was happy the whole time.
And nothing is supposed to be black and white. So, like, when we teach kids in our social skills group, I can give them a situation and ask them, like, how does that person feel? And they each tell me, like, 5 different things, because it really could be 5 different things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
You're all correct.
It just is what it is. And so that's kind of what you discover more in that age range, is like, things are not clear cut. Like, they're not black and white. And that's basically what Riley's going through right now. Like, yes, she's trying to be happy, trying real hard, but it's okay. Girl, let those other ones go over you for a little bit. And honestly, if they had just let sadness do her thing and let her be sad, probably for a little bit, it probably would have been a lot better than Joy freaking out about everything.
She could not be sad.
Why?
She's the worst character of all.
No, I'm saying if Riley could be sad for a little bit, not be sadness.
Well, who's going to take control of the console?
It would be sadness.
To be sad. It's sadness.
Yeah.
So
because sadness can regulate that sadness better than joy can.
Yeah.
And if Riley is set on being sad and she's trying to force herself to be happy,
so I think what Joy thinks,
well.
What Joy thinks is that if sadness goes in, like, Riley's going to be, like, depressed forever, but
and I
really
was
what happened.
Interesting that you say that. So what you're saying is that sadness wasn't. It was pretty much Riley, essentially coercing sadness into doing what she was gonna do.
You know how sometimes you can feel like your emotions are controlling you, and you're being tugged in a couple of different directions.
So if sadness, like at the end of the movie, she just kind of tweaks it, like, yes, Riley's sad, but like this was okay, and then she put like a little bit of joy in it. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think
she could regulate it better than Joy just being like, no. And honestly, Joy kind of messed it up.
Well, and I was going to save this for later in the conversation, but I think it's so poignant throughout the movie, especially when you look at the way the movie ends up. I think this is why I like the movie better this time around. If you've ever everyone has sad moments in their life. Everyone has, hard things. But if you've ever dealt with more complex emotions, depression, anxiety, any of those things, then you know that if you're in a situation and people are telling you that you have to be happy, or you feel like you have to be happy and you're not, that's what makes everything so much worse, is that you're putting like a shell over the way you actually feel, and that can either depress it like farther into your psyche or your emotions or whatever, or come out in some other weird way. And I think that's why all the other emotions like went into this overdrive of craziness, because the two that were battling, where, like you said, she really should have just let sadness do her thing. Because sadness is its own regulated emotion.
Right.
Because they didn't do that, all the other things went nuts.
That'll happen to me when I'm feeling particularly like depressed or whatever. I'll be sad, but then I'm angry that I'm sad and I'm not happy. Or I'm disgusted with myself that I'm sad and not happy. Or even I'm scared of never being happy again or whatever. So all of those other bad emotions can pop up and take control, even though I should just be letting sadness take the wheel.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's so interesting and I think that's cool that we all kind of, most of us agree. Most of us agree the second time around, because I think maybe we've just dealt with a lot more in the time that since we saw it the first time. But I just realized that more as an adult too. It's such an interesting concept, and I think that's why some people really don't like this movie, is because this isn't particularly. The movie's about kids, and there are funny kid parts and all of that. But this is such a concept that is so far above what a kid is going to understand when you're talking about like the truth of the movie versus just like emotions are funny or even emotions are crazy.
Some adults, like I was probably like emotionally stunted until I was at least 24 or whatever, like you're just not even thinking about it. And then you see all of these emotions represented on screen and just like, wait, is that what's going on in my head?
Ah!
Is that why I feel like that all the time? What is going on? I can imagine you not clicking with it immediately just because you're not in touch with
And
anything.
I also,
Yeah.
I'm wondering in my head, I was thinking about this a lot. Like, do you think this same, what I'm going to call it is a mental breakdown, do you think this same mental breakdown happened, like, with all the other ones? Like, all the other adults, you know?
I mean,
Because basically a mental breakdown happens. So what happens is the core memories become islands, and those are
the
like
tenets
the
of your
main-
personality.
Yes, they
tenets
fuel
of
her personality.
So she has like hockey, family, friendship, goofball island, because she's like a goof.
Imagination land.
Well, no, Imagination Land's not an island.
Oh.
Hockey, goofball, island, friendship, honesty, and family.
Honesty, that was the other one.
Yeah.
So you you
Bye.
could see like as her core memories went missing, then the facets of her personality went away, and like they fell down. And I was thinking in my head, like when hockey fell down for her, I was like, dang, that's how my brain felt like when gymnastics was no longer super important to me. Like, okay, well that's just like not really a part of my personality anymore. Like it went away. And so I was thinking, like, did that happen to all of them, where there was like this mental breakdown occurred of just like a restructuring of your cognitive sense? Because if you think about it, we literally, our psyche gets recalibrated every year for sure.
Well,
you know what
growing,
I mean?
maturing, I think that
It's just kinda
each
part
time
of
you,
growing up.
yeah, it's part of becoming who you are as an adult
Yeah.
too. Because of course, like you said, I think that's a perfect example. If Michelle, if you guys didn't know, Michelle was a gymnast for many years, and that was something that took up her entire life. For me, it was music. For Luis, it was soccer, which obviously
He's
soccer
still,
is still
involved
a
in it.
very large
Yeah.
part of his life. But he would have a soccer island for sure. And Michelle totally had a gymnastics island, but
oh yeah, for like 15 years.
you
at
know,
least.
but no longer. And it's not.
That's fine.
But you think about that, and you think like, is that a bad thing?
Right.
Like,
Not
not
necessarily.
particularly. It's
Yeah.
not something that you want to do anymore. You're not interested anymore. Whatever
Yeah,
the
whatever
thing
it
is. At the moment, your inside of your brain might be like, oh my god, this is crazy. I'm not going to do this anymore. But then over
But it's
time, it's not
fine,
that big of
yeah.
a deal.
Yeah. Like, you
For
know,
Luis, it would be like a mental breakdown if soccer was no longer.
Yeah.
if it was just gone.
It'd be weird. I'm not sure if I would literally break down mentally.
I think you would.
I did.
You
when
don't
I-
watch
when
him watching soccer every
I
Saturday.
knew I wanted to quit gymnastics. I knew I was just kind of done with it, like my sophomore year of high school. But it was weird. Like the first year, I was like, wait, what do I do?
Yeah.
Like that was all I knew. So it was like really weird.
Yeah.
Well, especially
But-
if it's something you're super impassioned or were super impassioned with.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how like the islands in your own brain can crumble and fall, but also like change and grow. So like when I was a kid, I probably had like Batman as an island and then like karate as an island. Like I'm gonna do
Did you,
karate.
Pretty sure Batman's still there.
I'm gonna
You
do
had a
martial arts.
karate
I had
island?
a karate island. I really wanted to be like a martial artist.
But he never did.
And
it.
then I went to karate for about 2.5 weeks, and I was like, "This is taking forever. This is really slow. Holy moly!"
Shut
So I
up.
quit karate. Karate Island crashes. Batman Island gets bigger. It's just like, okay, well, this is just something cool that I can appreciate.
Well, if
from
I
over
can't
here.
do karate, I'm gonna be
Be
Batman.
Batman. Yeah.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
Batman Island is
my husband,
thriving
y'all.
in my brain right now.
I
Doing
thought-
great.
Anyways.
I thought you were gonna say that you did karate your entire childhood or something.
No,
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 it was
no.
2 weeks long.
No, but there was build up to it.
Oh
Or
my god.
I was thinking about like how she had Family Island, and then Family Island fell. But Family Island got rebuilt at the end of the movie,
Yes.
but from a dual memory. So it had sadness and joy
Yes.
in Family Island, which I really like that because let's be real, is family really joyful all the time? Absolutely not. You know what I mean?
No,
so I
and
like
not
that those complex
even
things
if you have a
started coming
really,
in.
really good family relationship, there's always going to
Yeah.
be some
Fine, my
sort
Family
of.
Island ain't all joyous. You know what I mean?
Well,
So,
but
yeah.
even think about it. Like if someone passes away,
Mhm.
you're still going to have the memories
Yeah.
that you had there, but then it's going to have sadness involved with
Yeah.
that because,
Or if your parents get like divorced or something like
Yeah.
that, and you still love them, but then there's a big
Yeah,
old
yeah,
split,
yeah,
it
yeah,
separates you, and it's a bad memory that you have, but
Mhm.
then it,
If I was like
can
gonna get my
reform.
master's in psychology, I would do like a whole thesis on this movie because it's legit.
yeah.
So what I want to talk about now is when they leave headquarters. So they all work in headquarters.
get it, head quarters. I just, it's too
That's
smart.
crazy.
It's just too smart.
It's
I
very
can't.
smart.
Wow.
So they leave headquarters because basically at the end of the day, someone gets put on dream duty and they have to transfer all the memories into long-term memory. So all of the daily memories, basically when you go into REM sleep, this is really how that works. Basically your whole day from REM sleep gets put into a different storage part of your brain. So whatever they thought was the most important might stay in your core memories. Whatever was like probably super irrelevant, didn't really care, all those small memories are all going to long term. Or they might just start getting pushed back more and more and more. So I really like how, like, even when they were in long-term memory, like, some were fading or getting erased, or they weren't important. Because Lord knows I don't remember anything from when I was a baby.
Or they were
Phone
getting
numbers.
dumped.
We don't need all these. They're in our phone.
That was so good. That whole
Hilarious.
thing. That's what I'm saying. Like the
Amazing.
way that
But
they
your
did,
brain
like
literally-
geographically, how it was
Yeah.
behind the memories,
Yeah.
and then they were like sucking them down into the
Yeah.
pit
Into
in
the
the middle.
pit, yeah.
I was like,
And then
this
they
is
fade.
good.
Memories go to die.
This is so
Unless
good.
somebody, like, reminds you of it randomly.
Triple
You
that
know what I
go
mean?
can't make
Oh, my God.
Sometimes we just send these up to headquarters just to mess with them.
And you know what's so good is that I have some of those from like my
Ditties?
childhood.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, like jingles were such a big
Yeah.
deal when we were kids, and like
I can afford college.com.
800-390-SAVE. That's embarrassing that we know that.
Stupid radio.
Or like 877 cash now. Like those ones were my favorite.
No.
It's ridiculous.
That's fun. All
But it's good stuff though. But like, why does your brain remember that?
Right.
Because it's
I
a
have
ditty.
that. I remember that from what, 1998 or whatever, and it's still in there.
Don't remember when I first walked, though, but, you know.
Right, yeah.
It's fine.
Not a core
Anyways,
memory.
I'll tell you all about how I can't remember, the first 15 years of my life, but I know every jingle that was on.
So it's very hilarious because sadness and joy basically get pushed to the end of the islands where all the long-term memory is, and they can't really go around it, so they have to take the long way. And I guess it's a good thing Sadness read those stupid manuals that Joy was being really mean to her and made her read.
Yeah,
See, Joy was more mean this time to
Joy
me.
gets
Like,
her
she was
bully
being
on
kind of
in this
rude. Like,
one.
you get to stay in this circle,
The
and
circle
you
of
don't
sadness.
get to leave. Okay. Like, it was kind of depressing. I was
Yeah.
like, Joy, you're being
Yeah.
really mean to Sadness. But I guess she read the manual, so she knew where to go. But literally my favorite thing that Sadness does is when she just gets too sad, she like falls to the floor and just starts
Flies
crying, and
down.
she like sticks her foot up in the air like, okay, I'm ready to be dragged. And I'm thinking in my head, that's definitely some kind of crap I've done to Andre. Like, okay, you can just drag me. Like, for
Pick me
sure.
up.
Pick
No,
me
I
up.
ain't picking you up.
Pick me up.
It's funny though because I know. So when we were watching this part, Luis was like, "Oh my God, she's touching things!" Like he was so
Oh, because
mad.
he was touching all the memory
yeah,
balls.
like she was just touching them. They were all turning blue, and it's funny because in context, it is annoying.
It is.
Like
Absolutely.
girlfriend, put your hand back in. Like it is annoying.
You didn't need to touch all those memories. Yeah.
The entire row is blue. But if you think about it out of like in real context out of the movie, like sometimes when you think back on things you can't help but your brain going there, or at least
Yeah.
if that's your predisposition.
Yeah.
In the last couple years that is my predisposition, like to think back on things and be like, I just didn't. Maybe that person was being rude to me. I don't know. Like I thought it was a good interaction, but maybe it wasn't.
Right.
Like I kind of go back and I put like a color on it, right? Like I color it blue or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting because sometimes you can't help it, and or you feel like you can't help it, and that's so interesting because Sadness couldn't help it in the moment.
She's just like, oh,
Yeah.
hilarious.
And
It's like if you're like thinking about like back to high school or whatever, and
Ew.
then somebody tells
That's a lot of blue, bro.
Right, it's a lot of
Little
blue.
blue, a lot of green, a lot of purple.
That's a lot of blue, but like you could
That's
you
a
could,
lot
you
of
could be thinking back
purple.
to high school and like, ah man, it kind of sucked. Nobody liked me, and then somebody goes like, oh no, that one person, they liked you a lot. They told me all the time, and then you go like, wait, what? And then you start to recontextualize every memory of your interaction with those people, and it changes the way that you think about them.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It's just so we're such complex beings, and I think this movie just does a really good job.
Who's your friend who likes to play?
Bang, bang, bang.
Well, and here, that's a beautiful. Thank you for singing that ridiculous song because here is the deal. The first time I watched this movie, I wanted to prick my eyeballs out because I thought Bing Bong was so ridiculous.
What?
I didn't like the song. I thought he was. I just didn't like him.
You didn't remember he was an imaginary friend?
He's made of cotton candy.
Yes, he is. I
can't do a dolphin sound.
I knew he was an imaginary friend, but I didn't like it. But I'm gonna tell you
Aw.
now that because I have
I
a
like
kid,
Bing Bong.
and it was. Now I appreciate him.
I like Bing Bong.
Now I'm like, okay, Bing Bong,
Yeah.
you're
Go off,
hilarious.
Bing bong.
Like,
his carriage runs on song power.
that's
Come
precious.
on.
So yeah, I don't know. The first
I
time I
cry
did not like
candy.
him.
I cry
I
candy.
totally
Try
love
the
that he cries
caramels.
candy.
They're good.
It's delicious.
But I'm really happy with him now. So I don't
He's
know
so
what my
cute. So
problem
yeah,
was
basically
before.
they run into Bing Bong, and he's like stealing memories, and it's kind of sad because I think he's stealing memories to like remember Riley.
Yes.
Because Riley has moved on. I mean,
Yeah.
you only have an imaginary friend in very, very early childhood or toddlerhood. You know what I mean? I never had one, but
I don't think I had one.
Well, how do you know if you didn't have one?
I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, I might have
You could have
forgot.
memory dumped.
Maybe I did. I don't know.
I used to say I didn't have an imaginary friend. I had an imaginary studio audience, and I was always just performing for it.
well, there you
All
go.
the time.
And I feel like that never went away.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
Andre still thinks he has one.
Yeah,
They're
Of
still
I was
there.
just
They're
obsessed,
still loving it.
I just had multiple Tiggers, like maybe like 50 Tiggers. So, you know.
in your
that-
head or
Nope, Tiggers.
nope, Tigger.
So that was
Stuffed
my
animals
imaginary
is what you
friends.
had.
Yeah, and they would
Yes.
talk to each other.
There
They
you
had
go.
different Tigger personalities. What ifs? Anyways, so Bing Bong is her imaginary friend, and it's very. I think he's cute.
Different Tigger personalities.
Their
Yeah, they're
personalities,
different
dude.
Tiggers. Okay.
All right,
There's
all right.
Sad, sad
I like
Tigger,
the bounce. I like the
happy
flounce.
Tigger.
Fun.
You don't know. I don't know.
Sorry, I'm stuck on it. Go ahead.
Anywho.
I can't recall, but I'm sure they did. Anyways, I can't even remember where I was. So they met Bing Bong, and Bing Bong is like, okay, I can get you back to headquarters. We need to take the train of thought. The train of
So
thought
good.
is
Very clever.
also extremely clever.
So good.
Mhm.
Just so clever. And I like when they're on the train of thought and there's two boxes and one says facts and one says opinions and they spill them and he's like, that's okay, they get mixed up all the time. Literally so funny.
Truth.
Very good.
Oh, I
Pretty
can't.
sure he was talking
So-
about the news. I don't know. I'm just gonna
I
say.
know. It's so funny how it's like still relevant. Anyway, so to get to the train of thought, they really need to go around this weird warehouse rectangle thing.
It
But-
says caution, keep out, danger, don't go in there.
Yeah, but
And
he didn't know what it said.
he
'cause
doesn't
Bing
know how to
Bong can't
read.
because he's like a preschooler. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? He can't read.
Tunnel of
And,
abstract thought.
This is where it starts to get annoying that Joy like doesn't really trust Sadness, and I'm like, Joy, just listen to Sadness, just go around. It's not a big deal. But no, they go inside abstract thought.
They get
Which-
fragmented, they get deconstructed, they get
Yes.
two-dimensionalized, and then they get non-figurative.
It's literally so funny.
It's actually quite hilarious.
I'm sure an
crazy.
English teacher, or art teacher is probably like dying or whatever.
Oh
Like,
yeah, it was good. It was good stuff.
Just the
Except
way
for
it
the fact
looked,
that they
too.
almost got like completely obliterated.
Yeah, it
Poofed.
kind of gave me anxiety. not
Oh
gonna lie.
yeah, I was like, hurry up,
It was
go!
creepy. Yeah.
Anyway, so they made it
Sadness
through there,
gone.
though. It's fine. This is where I feel like now we're like on a never-ending journey. You know what I mean? Like by this point.
I know.
So-
I was like, are they ever gonna get back to headquarters? They're killing me.
No, apparently not, because then they had to go to Imagination Land after that. So Imagination
I love
Land
Imagination
is
Land.
dope because if you think about it, I still make things up. You know what I mean? Just like think about random stuff in your dreams.
Constantly.
So there's like a cloud town, and Andre is freaking dying because this little cloud. What did Bing Bong do to the cloud?
Murdered him.
The guy.
Luis was like, I'm pretty sure that was murder.
It was straight up
It
murder.
was murder.
The guy like comes out of his cloud house because Bing Bong bumped into his cloud house, and he's like, "Hey, what are you
No,
doing?"
Bing Bong was like poofing his cloud house away.
Exactly, that's what I'm
Being
saying.
rude.
And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then he just like, boom, he smacked him, and he ceased to exist. He's like, and then Bing Bong kind of just walked away.
Yeah, and then later,
like a toddler. Adeline would do that. Like,
then later-
smack it and then walk away like, oh,
and
sorry.
then later the wife came out and was like giving a police
Oh,
report,
a police report. Like,
to
what
like
happened,
the
man?
donut thingies and was like, they were like, what happened? And then he poofed him.
Well, Joy runs by and she poofs the lady, and the cop is like, "No!"
And the other cop's like, it's Cloud
Forget it,
Town.
Jake. It's Cloud Town.
I don't know. Andre,
Did they remind
Andre
you of the
was
donut cops in
Yeah.
Yes, in Wreck-It
in
Ralph.
Wreck-It
Yeah.
Ralph? Yes. Okay, I'm not the only one. I was like, I'm pretty sure these are the exact same characters.
It was basically like the same things.
cop
Oh.
But it's
stereotypes.
just
They're just murdering people. Don't even
murdering
care.
people. Yeah, so Imagination Land is interesting. So that's where you can see there's like the machine where Bing Bong was created. And then
I would die for Riley.
Yeah, so she's a little bit older, so now she's got an imaginary boyfriend.
Yeah. While all of this is happening, like in the real world, Riley is like she's real sad. She had a really bad day at work or at school.
She cries.
And so Anger has the bright idea, and he literally grabs a light bulb and sticks
because
it
that's
into
how
the
they do like
Hold on, no,
sticks
stop.
it into the
She goes,
console.
hold on. She doesn't like the house.
Right.
The next day she goes to school. She cries in front of the class.
Yep.
Then she's
that's
then
a
she
mad
sad
goes-
at
core
dinner.
memory.
No, she goes to hockey first, doesn't she? Or does she go to?
No, after?
Well, okay, so she at dinner.
They go to dinner. Her mom's like, "There's some hockey tryouts," and she's like, "Cool, whatever." And then that's when the mom brain comes on, and the brains comes on.
Oh no, what's
And
happening?
she's like, "What's happening?"
What's wrong
Yes.
with
So
her?
they're like, "We're gonna cue the father," and they're like cueing the father, and then inside the father brain, they're just like freaking watching sports.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
And then he's
Not
like, "Oh
thinking
my
about
god.
anything.
What does she want? What does she Oh no. Yes, Riley. How was your day at school?" And she's like, "Oh my
And the mom was
god."
like, oh,
He's
an
so
idiot.
good.
All
I'm
of
going
them
to go
in there,
hang
like-
out with that Brazilian helicopter pilot.
That was so good.
They have the freaking memory
That they
bulb.
just bring up the memory of him every once in a
And
while.
everyone's like, "Oh, yes."
like,
much better. Anyways, it's freaking
So
hilarious
funny.
because then Riley's getting mad, right? So like, fear comes in, and then disgust comes in, and then anger's like, "Fine, I got this, right?" And he's like getting hecka mad, so he's like, his hair catches on fire, and then the dad emotions in the brain are like, "We're gonna have to put the foot down."
prepare the foot.
Prepare the foot.
It's a 2-key system to use the button to put the foot down. So funny.
The foot has been down.
So
Nice
she gets
work.
in trouble. But she then ends up still at hockey practice to try out for this new hockey team.
Yeah.
And because the emotions are like losing it,
Well,
and
and
her
Hockey Island's
her hockey
gone.
island falls, she loses her skill pretty much, like
Yeah.
her love for it or her passion for it or her personality
She just
or
like
whatever.
doesn't really care about it.
So she
Can't do
totally
it.
messes up and loses her cool. And so at this point, that's where you were going to come in and say anger comes up with his.
Well,
yes.
yeah, because anger is like, wow, now that core memory fell too. And the only time Riley was happy was when she had all the core memories. Where did she get them? Minnesota. So we
Minnesota.
need to go back to Minnesota to get more core memories.
Which is like
Which
a
is like
12-year-old,
kid
like,
logic. That's
Wh-
why little kids run away.
Yeah, that's like
little
kid logic.
Yes.
You know.
you know what I mean?
And
And so
there's no
once they-
forethought at all. She's just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'll go to Minnesota.
But once they put the light bulb, the like good idea inside Riley, they can't take it out.
it locks in.
It like locks in.
She
So
accepted
it's in there.
the
She
idea.
accepted it, but she only accepted this idea after freaking Joy tried to wake her up from a dream.
Oh, yeah, the Dream Productions. That was hilarious.
It was hilarious.
The fact that all the dreams are little movies.
I'm sorry. This was my favorite part of Fear is when he's watching the dream, and he's like, "Oh,
He's
teeth-
on dream
teeth
duty.
falling out, predictable. Let me guess, she has no pants on." I was like, "Oh my god!" I was literally dying with fear on this.
And then here comes the dog. Joy's like, "Who doesn't love puppies?" And they come in, and she's the front of the dog, and Sadness is the back of the dog.
And
Why
they
do they
rip
always
the
do
dog.
that? Why do they always have to do that?
Doesn't make any sense.
So they're on the thing, right? They come in, and oh my god, the dog's so cute or whatever. And then they're like, "This isn't working." And unfortunately, the costume falls apart, and
so it looks
so
like the dog. ripped
then
in
it looks
half.
like the dog. got
Which is
ripped.
so funny. Also, it was Joy's idea to wake her up with happiness. Like, the dream will be so joyful, she'll
You
awake
kidding
out of
me?
joy.
Anytime I'm having a good dream, I'm like, "Don't wake me up."
Sadness is like,
No.
I don't think that's ever happened.
No, that's not how that
Needs to be
works.
scared.
Leslie,
It's
Lindsay.
just really cool because there's like a reality filter too they put on the camera that
So
makes it
good.
look like the dreams.
Yeah.
This is also where we meet Rainbow Unicorn, which I thought had a much bigger part in this
Yeah,
movie.
she's not a big
but
deal.
She's irrelevant. Why is there so much?
She's on the merch all over the place.
Yeah, I don't
And,
know.
Yeah, I completely had forgotten about where she was in this movie. And then when we got to her, I was like, oh, she didn't say anything.
I knew
or
where she
do
was.
much.
I just thought that she had a much bigger part than she did.
Right,
It's literally
yeah.
like a 3-minute cameo of this
Yeah.
magical
Really weird.
unicorn.
But anyways, they wake her up by this freaking clown, which is absolutely terrifying. and
So
all.
okay, so stop. So pretty much they're in this like Hollywood like studio, right? And they get put in jail pretty much. And Bing Bong gets taken off to jail very quickly. I don't know how he
Mhm.
got down there so fast. And Joy and Sadness go to find him, follow the candy trail of tears.
Yes.
And they end up in an area which is all of Riley's darkest fears.
Darkest fears,
Mhm.
yes.
Which is pretty fantastic.
It's really cool.
Yeah, lock them away.
I like that. It's like in a cage. down like near the memory
It's
dump,
got
like
a big old
suppressed.
door with
Yes.
guards.
Totally, that's fantastic. And a very scary clown. Very
Also,
scary
that
clown is
vacuum
at the
was
bottom.
scary. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
there's a bunch of like childish stuff. in
Yes.
there. Stuff that she hasn't thought about in a while.
Grandma's vacuum.
Yeah,
Broccoli.
grandma's vacuum. Broccoli.
The
Broccoli's a big one in there.
It was
yeah,
disgusting.
and the most terrifying clown I've ever seen in my life.
It was pretty
Ugh.
scary.
I don't like clowns either, so.
It was
felt
like
terrible.
rivaling the what is that show called?
It?
American Horror Story.
American Horror Story. It's rivaling the American Horror Story clown from season like 4 or whatever,
Disgusting.
which is pretty scary. Okay.
Scowies.
But it's fine. They wake her up with a freaking
Jangles.
scary clown. Jangles. Disgusting. Ugh, makes me want to puke.
So she wakes up and
And that's when she
unfortunately,
takes the
yes,
idea.
and unfortunately she decides, okay, I'm gonna do this. She steals their mom's credit card, and then there goes Honesty Island,
Oh, I know. That was really
and
sad.
it
Honesty
derails the
Island.
train of thought that
They're on.
the three of them are on,
Mm-hmm.
and they fall down,
and they go down into the memory pit. The
Pit.
what is it called? Memory
Well,
dump.
no, they don't fall then. No, they don't.
They
fall
don't?
Then. No, they actually get pulled off the train. But Sadness is like, I mean, Joy is like so upset that the train gets derailed. She's like, how are we gonna get back over there? But there was like the
You
the
are
thing
so
that
right.
whooshes them over.
The recall
The
tube.
recall tube.
tubes. That's right.
So Joy like
That
goes to the
whooshes
recall
them.
tube and she's gonna pull Sadness in, but she was like, I'm sorry, Sadness. Riley needs to be happy, and like pushes Sadness down and puts herself in the recall tube without Sadness.
Then the
That's-
recall tube doesn't work all the way.
and it
uh,
spits
You're right.
her out, and that's when they
And
fall.
that's when they
You're
fall.
right.
Her and Bing Bong.
That was called karma, Joy.
That was. I know. I was kind of like, wow, this is a little aggressively.
Yeah, she's very aggressive because
okay.
she really wants her to be happy, and it's not working.
I don't remember how Bing Bong falls down there too, but
I don't remember either.
I think he fell down there first, actually.
Yeah, I think he had
Mm.
fallen before that we missed, and then she met him
like
down
on the
there.
train.
It's just really unfortunate. So they're all, or she and he,
Joy and Bing Bong.
are in the memory dump, and
Mhm.
she's like, wow, this is rough.
This is
And
it.
pretty much, this
She's
is
trying
where.
to get up, but it's like really sad because you can see just like the memories. I was telling Andre that it almost looked like in Harry Potter where they're in that
prophecies. The
yeah,
Hall of
Yes.
prophecies.
and they're breaking all the prophecies and they're just like disappearing. So I was like, oh no, they're all the prophecies are going. But it's just her memories, like long lost memories,
Yeah.
and it's like really depressing because they can't get out of there.
Well, and I
Start to
think
see
that's
Bing
what made
Bong
me like
disappear.
really. That's what made me really sad because it's almost like the end of like childhood innocence
Yeah.
was like before their eyes. They were literally seeing like all of like, and oh god, this is like a total parent moment for me. But like just the little things that like in the moment you're like, I will never forget like the first time like Adeline did blah blah blah. And of course, like you're not gonna remember the first of everything.
No.
But then
Impossible.
but it's so like it was so sweet in the moment, and then you watch it disappear, and it's like, oh my
it's
god, so
gone
heart
forever.
wrenching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super heart wrenching. It was even more heart wrenching because I really like Bean Bong, and then his like whole arm starts fading. And I'm like, no, Bean Bong.
Candy cane.
Well, and
candy-
it's funny because I told you guys before we started recording the podcast, I told Andre and Michelle that I was going to give all of the Luis quotes that I wrote down, but this part, he goes, I wish we could just skip this part. He goes, I'm pretty sure he sacrifices himself, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
I just want to skip
Well,
past
he
it.
was right. He
I
does.
was like, he does, Lou.
Totally
And then
does.
he goes, take her to the moon for me, okay? And Lou's
Mhm.
like, wow, that was harsh.
it is hard. It's also like Joy is kind of oblivious to Bing Bong a lot of the time. Like she likes Bing Bong, but even when they're like singing the song, trying to get up there, really she doesn't notice him just like fall off the thing.
Mm-mm.
Like, come on,
He
Joy.
takes the plunge too. He like pulls his whole nose up. He's like,
He was like, sing harder as he's
Yeah.
like falling back. It's freaking depressing.
It's so sad.
It's really
okay.
sad.
And then
that
he
whole-
poofs.
And then he gets.
And then I went to Andre and I said, dang it, Pixar! Because they always do that
They
kind of crap,
always
right?
do it.
But that's what they're good at.
the whole memory dump. The entire time I was just thinking like, man, that's where all my jokes are. They're just gone.
Shut
all the jokes I don't write down. Just
Drop
perishing.
this mic on the floor right now.
It's important.
Absolutely ridiculous.
A lot of stuff.
No, I was just thinking more of
Priorities.
I was thinking more along the lines of I think it's sad that probably like a parent would remember all of those old memories, but like kids don't remember like hardly anything from their childhood.
Right. Yeah.
That part's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like weird because your brain just like that's just how your brain works.
Well,
know
you
what I mean?
can't. I mean, I do like that they call it the memory dump because there really is no way that you could remember everything that you witnessed.
Right.
No,
Can
you
you-
can't.
I mean, my personality, I remember like a quarter of the things that people say to me. I know that's awful.
Right.
That's just how my brain
I
is.
remember a
But
lot
they
of stuff.
get thrown
Like, people will be like-
back there in your long term memory. Because when my grandpa had Alzheimer's, like when he was like on his deathbed, he was remembering things from when he was like 10 years old.
Yeah.
Where I was like, wait, what? Like, how is he remembering all of this stuff? It's just
Mhm.
because, like, his brain was
up.
taking him that far back, and that's like all he could remember, which
Yeah.
is just like the brain is insane.
And
you know what I mean?
and it was dumping some of those other long-term memories.
Yeah, it was
I'm
like
sure.
dumping other things onto him.
Making
Where I was like,
room.
what's going on? Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This movie's just so well done. So it's fine. Joy makes it out, and then she goes looking after
the rocket ship.
Sadness. And this is where Sadness is being so ridiculous. She's on the freaking cloud, and it's like raining. And she's like, "No, Joy, leave me alone." Just, like,
This, I
crying.
won't lie.
This is where Sadness gets annoying to me. I'm like, Sadness.
This part of the movie to me is very bizarre,
Mhm.
and I think they could have done a better job with this particular portion.
Right. Back to
They're
imagination
like
land.
with the clouds and the imaginary boyfriends, like get her up and over, like slingshotting
Right.
her back to headquarters. Like if it was that easy to get you back to headquarters, then why did we take an entire movie to do this?
Could've
Like,
done that the entire time.
you know,
yeah.
what I
That's
don't know.
true.
I just thought that the whole imaginary part was a little bizarre,
Yeah.
which I get that
Yeah.
it's supposed to be like
It
imagination
was
and
getting
stuff.
me like
but
weird Wreck-It Ralph 2 vibes too. I was
Yes.
like, ew, gross. I just don't like when there's that many multiple of things in the same room.
yes,
Yeah, so that was kind of weird, but what I like is at this point, Riley's like on a bus,
yeah,
like going to leave, and all three of them were like, fine, it's a good idea, I guess. And then fear, disgust, and anger all flipping out. They're like, no, why'd we do this? No! And they're trying to get the memory or the idea out, but they can't because like the whole control panel is like turning black. Which was
Right.
like freaking me out, and I'm thinking in my head, like, if Joy and Sadness didn't come, like, what would have happened?
I think
Would all of those emotions just been dead?
I think that's kind of like mental illness kind of setting in or something like that, you know, where it's just like your mind, it's not like it's necessarily permanently broken, but it's definitely damaged at this
or
point.
not thinking rationally or
Yes,
something?
you know, and you know, you can continue that line of thinking for years and years and years until you get help or whatever. So, you know, like the control center is off the table now. It's broken. It's busted, and she needs a repairman to come in and fix it, aka a therapist. You know, like that's
Okay.
that's the kind
But
of.
I was like, dang, this is intense. But I really like how Joy was finally like, okay, Sadness. Like, okay, go fix
Well,
it.
and I think that that's the good thing was that it really does show that, like we were talking about earlier, sometimes you need to be sad. Like, you
Mhm.
can't cover it up.
Yeah.
And the only way that they made it out of it was because Sadness reminded her of all of the things
all the
that she had
memories.
lost.
Yeah.
Because if she hadn't gotten sad, she wouldn't have wanted to go home.
Mm-hmm.
What would make you want to go back to your parents if you weren't sad and miss them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't be like, oh my God, I love my parents so much, but I'm not going to go home. Like, that's just weird.
It
You
would have
know?
been weird if she was joyful in that situation. Like, okay, why are you going to be happy right now? You know? So I really
'Cause
like
then that would have given her more gung-ho to keep doing this stupid plan.
Great,
Right.
happy to go back to Minnesota.
Yeah.
It
No.
wouldn't have
Hey,
worked.
what's up, hockey friends?
Yeah, so I really like all that, and I really like how Sadness, well, she never really got a chance to ever be on the control panel, I'm pretty sure. So it was very helpful for Riley, and I guess for the other emotions too.
Yeah, Sadness took the reins.
Yeah, but then she also, like, I like how she puts her hand over Joy
Co-pilot
and then,
Joy.
like, made it, like, a dual memory. And I remember, well, the first time I watched it, too, I was like, nice, a dual memory
Yeah.
or a dual
Mhm.
emotion, because everything is multiple emotions. There's nothing that's just one at all.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so
Period.
funny because,
Not
I mean,
anymore.
I'm not trying to make this all emotional, even though this is an emotional movie.
Yeah.
But, like, a perfect example, and it's funny because, and I'm not throwing Andre under the bus, but it's, if we look at, like, contextually, it looked similar from the outside, but it was very different, and you'll know what I mean in just a second. So we're coming up on almost a year of Andre and Michelle's marriage, which is really cool.
Dang,
Shout
holy
out.
moly.
Shout out to you guys. But I bring it up because I got to be a very, lucky member of your wedding party, and I got to stand on the stage as
And
you guys
cry
got
all day.
married.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. Shout out to me for being a good friend.
It's a great day.
But I remember this because we were standing there, and I thought to myself in my head, because Michelle and I are big and little from our sorority, and that just has like a different emotional tie to it.
For sure.
And I thought to myself, when you were gonna walk out, I was like, I'm not gonna look at her because I don't want to cry. And so I look at Andre, and he starts crying, and then I start crying because Andre's crying, looking at his beautiful wife.
And guess who didn't cry? Me.
Whatever, Miss Emotionless.
Okay.
No, that's because I cried on my engagement.
And here is feels over here, like, right? And it's funny because
I was happy because he was crying. That's a mixed emotion in itself, right?
But if you think about that's it's not that sadness took in,
No,
but it's
that's
not pure joy.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's other emotions in that. It's like, wow, my life is changing. Oh my gosh. It's a little bit of fear. It's a little bit of, it might be a little bit of sadness that, it took this long, or that it may not be, it's just, it has, there's always so many. And I think of my own wedding day, which that's why I was saying, like, you cried on your wedding day. I cried on my wedding day. I literally cried through the entire ceremony.
Dude, I don't know how I hold it together.
And mine
If I
actually
had that little napkin in my pocket, I would have been
right, like my poor face. But it's just so
Different.
interesting how they did a beautiful job taking this kid who was obviously primarily happy, but she needs to go through all those emotions to be real, to be a real person. And I really like how mom was sadness, or dad was whatever, because not every person is steered by happiness.
Right.
No.
And I think that it would be interesting to see what people would be like over time, because like in high school, I probably was geared through joy. Like if we're going to just simplify it simply, I guess, I probably was geared through joy. But I would say, like, through a lot of circumstances in my life, I could be like half joy, half anger at any given
I've
moment.
been in fear most of my life. I need to calm down.
I think like fear is definitely steering the ship in big brain over here,
Yeah, not so much anymore. I feel like it's more joy with us now than it used to be.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, I think the one time, and Emily can say if this is true, where you will feel all 5 emotions at once. So joy, sadness, fear, anger, and disgust is giving birth to a baby.
Y'all. All of those.
I'll let you know. I'm going to think about it when it happens to me one day.
You're going to be like, I understand inside out. Oh, my God.
You guys stop screaming
all
in
the
there.
fear. This is disgusting. I'm so mad at you for putting this child in my body.
Like it's my fault.
I'm super happy, and this is depressing. My life is changing. So there you go. So
funny.
did this movie make a lot of Pixar money?
It did make a lot of Pixar money. Let's see.
I mean, what
here.
Pixar movie doesn't make money?
Its budget was a $175 million.
Jeez.
And it had a grand total of $356.5 million. Oh, that's just in the U.S. And in worldwide, it made $857 million.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, nearing that billion number. Nearing. Only $150 million off.
Oh, Lord. Well, I think it's really interesting, too, because this movie kind of spawned a lot of people to think more. Not so much that people weren't like talking about mental illness before that, so don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I've seen a lot of Disney-centered people talk more about mental illness through the lens of this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if the listeners know this, but there are a lot of Disney social clubs out there, like people who get together who are kind of like, they would probably like roll their eyes at this statement, but kind of like fraternities or sororities of like social type groups that are Disney lovers. They go to the parks together. They do things. They like sometimes they go out and do philanthropic stuff or fundraising or whatever. And I know that there's a couple that have like taken on the lens and the kind of hurrah of social and mental health through this movie. And I know there's one called like The Inside Outers and some other things, which I think is really cool because this is one of the only movies that talks about kind of those deeper things than just like, I'm growing up and it's sad, because growing up is sad, but so are other things.
Very true. Yeah, like I before this movie, I wouldn't have imagined having a kids movie detail how important it is to be sad, like
exactly.
It's a very unique concept, and it's done so well because children can understand it and adults can really understand it. You know, it's powerful in that.
You
want to
know who always feels better after a good cry? Everybody. I cry it out. I'm like,
Everybody.
nice, cried it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm mad about it after.
Not Emily. She's
Anger
shaking her
comes
head.
on like, ah!
Yeah. Most of the time
He's
I
like
just
got some
don't get
Hades head going
know?
on, Mr. Anger.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about also the end of this movie where the most. So Riley was 11 and now she's 12. So they got an upgraded console that just has a lot more. Because if you think about it, as you're growing, more complex emotions come into play and
There's
different
a-
understandings
There's a
of
puberty
things.
button on it.
But didn't it say that the cuss board was locked or no?
No. He said, "Look at all the cuss words I have access to."
So
Oh, I
funny.
know. And then they're asking like, "What's that button?" Puberty, and they're
Yeah.
like, "I don't know."
No, leave it alone.
And I was like, "Don't touch it."
So
no.
Somebody's gonna be compelled to smack that button.
anger.
Yeah,
probably.
I'm sure he's just gonna get mad and start pushing all the buttons at once.
Anger or disgust. for
right?
sure.
Yeah,
I
disgust.
love it.
Mhm.
I love it.
Disgust would definitely come more into play in a teenage Riley movie.
For
Teenage
sure.
girls. Yeah, absolutely.
So there were a couple Easter eggs in this movie I just want to talk about super quickly.
Mhm.
Honestly, there was more than I think I'm going to talk about,
Okay.
but I can post about it. There was 2 that I saw myself, and then there's like quite a few that I read about.
Some extras.
Yes, the dinosaur from Riley's memory. We talked about it in the Good Dinosaur episode because it was the
Oh.
Good Dinosaur reference.
Right.
I realized that when we were watching the movie, I was like, "Oh, look, the dinosaur."
But where
And
was
you were
it?
like, "Yeah, that's a dinosaur." So I knew he didn't understand what I
It
was
was
saying.
it was
when
in
they were on
the
the
memory.
road trip, in the memory of them taking the road trip.
Oh,
and-
the dinosaur. That
Yeah,
they
and her
see
mom was like, "Well, what was your favorite memory of the road trip?" And she was like, "The dinosaur."
It was the weird dinosaur that had all the birds on it that were like talking for it.
Okay,
I don't
that
remember
makes
what his
sense.
name was, but it was creepy.
Yeah.
And then this is one that I'm saying I saw, and I'm like 90% sure it is what I'm thinking it is. But when Bing Bong was like pulling all the stuff out of his satchel, I'm like 90% sure he pulled out the Wally boot, like the
oh,
boots.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so then there you go.
Out of
So-
his Hermione bag.
Yes, I know. Luis was like, "Oh my God, he's Hermione Granger."
I thought it was a Mary Poppins bag.
Yeah,
That too. So a lot of times in the memory bubbles, apparently there were memories or clips from other Pixar movies. So
Oh.
there's a couple different versions of memory orbs in Riley's mind that have like opening scenes from Up and other movies. I can't confirm that. It's just what I'm
You
reading.
know why? Because she watched that movie, and guess what stuck with her? The first 10 minutes.
And that's
It's in
why
a memory
she
orb.
has sadness.
It's a blue orb.
That's why sadness is
That's
so
for
blue.
sure a blue orb.
Right?
But it's also a yellow orb.
I was not able to spot any Pizza Planet trucks, but the director does say that there was the Pizza Planet truck 3 different times in this movie.
I didn't see it.
There are a lot of driving scenes as they're moving.
Yes,
so I'm
he
not sure
said
up there.
that there's multiple ones in San Francisco when the
Oh,
automobiles are moving.
Probably for sure. Yeah.
They go to a pizza place.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Broccoli pizza.
yes.
Disgusting.
From the birds, excuse me,
Birds on a wire.
for the birds on the wire were in the movie.
Yeah.
We saw the Good Dinosaur one. In the apartment when they move in, there is a magazine on the floor, and it has, what is her name? Colette from
Uh-huh.
Ratatouille.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
She's on the front of one of the
Hey,
magazines.
Girl got a restaurant.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. A113, you know, our Pixar number
Mhm.
is on the outside of Riley's classroom, and it's on the bus that she hops on, and it's on the train car that Bing Bong, Joy, and Sadness are on. And it's spray painted on a building when she's running away. So apparently
Jeez.
A113 is all
Yeah,
up in
they're
it.
out here.
This one, I love this one. Are you ready for this? Apparently, the globe inside of Riley's classroom is the same globe that was used in Toy Story. I'm just saying it's a
Globe
globe.
is a
Like, I
globe.
need people to get over themselves,
Well,
okay?
same
A globe is a
globe.
globe is a globe. They cray. So this is people getting a little silly.
That's funny.
Literally a globe.
So the Chinese takeout box,
Mhm.
we've seen it multiple times.
Yeah.
She's
Love it.
eating
She's
Chinese
eating it.
takeout.
That's right.
Love it.
Broccoli.
And then in Imagination Land, there are board games for Dinosaur World and Find Me, and it has Nemo on the front. Find Me, Nemo.
Find me.
Yeah. Get
So
it? Find
broccoli
Nemo.
beef is
Find Nemo.
delicious. Okay, so she's wrong. I like broccoli beef.
Broccoli beef.
Delicious.
Broccoli beef's good.
So yeah, that's that.
Okay.
Nice.
Oh, and lastly, in the nightmare sequence where Riley's new apartment becomes super spooky, it's part of the score from the Haunted Mansion.
Oh.
Apparently.
Oh, that makes sense.
No, I'm just kidding.
Not
that
that,
song.
but that's cool. Okay.
Different stuff.
All right, what's its percentage?
On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie is one of the highest scored movies of all time. It has a 98%.
It's because it's so clever. I'm sure critics were dying.
Fresh. Yeah. There's like 357 reviews on here, and
Jeez Louise.
lots of them are very positive.
Well, I'm gonna give this movie a 9.5. It's definitely like top 3 Pixar movies for me. It's just so clever. The only reason I'm giving it not quite a 10 is because, like you said, that whole multiple Riley things was really weird and unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I wasn't a huge fan of the score.
Oh, really? You don't like the music? I like the music in this
It's okay, but it wasn't like my favorite. Like, it made sense, but like when we were riding the Inside Out ride at Disneyland and it had that music in it, I was like, this doesn't make me feel joy.
Sure.
So like
Maybe it's
I
not
don't know.
supposed
Like,
to.
Well, Louise hated it. I'll tell you that because
Is it?
when we were certain parts of it. So
well, I just wasn't a fan of all of it.
when the part where it shows her learning to skate and it's like that back, it's the return memory and Joy's like skating in her head and stuff. It's supposed to be really pretty, and Louise is like, "Wow, this is depressing." And I'm like, "This is not depressing." He's like, "No, this literally makes me want to cry right now."
So
I'm
like it's supposed to sound joyful, but I agree with Louise
Mhm.
because sometimes I was like, this doesn't sound joyful to me. And like
Mhm.
when we were on the ride at Disneyland and it had that song, I was like, yay.
Listen, I can't believe y'all are disparaging our main guy, Michael
Giacchino.
I don't dislike Giacchino, and
I
I'm not
love-
saying the music is terrible. I'm just saying it's not my favorite.
Sure.
I still gave the movie a 9.5.
I will say that I really do like the score piece when they're going into the production area. It's like
like old Hollywood.
yes.
Well, I like the very, very first opening scene music.
That one.
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway.
Anger.
Yeah.
Anyways, Emily, what are you gonna give this?
I'm gonna give it a 9. I like it a lot, but it doesn't get anything higher than that because there's feels. How dare it? No, so it's a
Too
really good
many
movie.
feels.
I would not watch this movie every day
Mhm.
because
No.
it would make me feel too many
It
things.
would mess
and-
me up.
Yes, or I think I might lose the appreciation for the depth
Right.
if I overwatch.
I
Does that make
agree.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I could-
why I don't watch Up like once every 5 years.
For real. Like, I'll just tell you guys, full disclosure, we're on a Princess and the Frog overload in my house right now
Oh, no, are you
because
over it
somebody loves Anna, and that's not Anna and Elsa.
Tiana.
It's Tiana.
Are you
Um,
over it now?
No, I'm not over it. And I think that's what my point, because that movie does not have, no offense, it's not as deep.
It's not as deep. Yeah.
It's fun. It's upbeat. The music's super upbeat. Like everything, like you can think of it in a more deep way if you want to, but it's much more fun.
Yeah.
And so that is, yeah. Oh yeah, no, I'm taking you down to the bayou all the time. You know what I mean? So that's easier for me to rewatch. This could not.
No, Evangeline, get out of here.
Evangeline.
Get out of here. No.
Come on, chat.
I think I'm gonna give this movie a 9 as well. I love it. It's a fantastic movie. I really love the concept. It's really funny. All the actors in it are doing a bang up job.
And the kid too, Riley.
And the kid, yeah, Riley. I don't even know. Who
I think
she's
all
played
the
by.
actors are great. Even the little dudes who are sucking out the memory bulbs in the long term. Those little things were funny.
Oh, well,
They're
baby.
like, oh, sometimes
I like
we
the
just throw
animated
this-
character giving us pizza with broccoli like a crazy
Sometimes
person.
we just throw in this
Creepy.
Trident gum thing. We just send it up to headquarters just for fun. Ah!
But yeah, it's not higher score than a 9 just because I think you're right, Emily, that it's not like the best movie to watch a lot. Like I think it's really good in every few years. I'll check back into this one and see how it makes me feel. And I
But I'm
look
not
forward
gonna
to
lie.
feeling like that. Same with Up.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Up and same with Coco. That snap gives me the feels too.
Yeah.
Who directed Coco? 'Cause
I
people-
like Coco's a little bit more fun than
Yeah.
these
Yeah,
I
two.
I can
agree.
tolerate it more, but once we start getting to the end of the movie, I'm like,
Yeah, no, there's, and that's not a problem for me, but it also makes it less relatable for being like an instant classic. Like when I think Disney classics, it's something that like you binge watch.
I wanna be where the people.
Do you want to know how many times we've watched Little Mermaid 2? Air. I don't know if she's saying Ariel or Eric, but
I don't know,
she's saying
but she does like it,
air.
and she knows Auntie Shell likes it.
Yes, she does.
Because sometimes she's like, Shell? Mermaid? I'm like, yeah, I know.
Right?
Correct.
Get it, girl.
You're right.
You right. You're not wrong.
And I wonder if that's just kind of like the kid in us that likes something a little bit more simple. It makes it easier to digest.
That's very possible.
Well, also, I can just watch it while I'm doing chores, and it doesn't make me have the feels.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know?
Word.
What's the word? Burn.
All right, so next week.
Guess what? We're doing some cool stuff
Wait,
coming
what
out.
are we doing next week?
Next
Oh,
week.
I want Luis to come
wait.
announce it.
He's actually excited about this
He is
one.
excited. Where did he go?
He went to go pick up the kids we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, I get
that's
to
right.
see
He's
them.
gone.
All right, so we're doing a movie that Luis kind of picked out. He's very excited about.
Next week we are watching
It's on Netflix.
the
Yeah, it
Disney live-action movie Bedtime Stories.
Actually, I'm pretty sure I've never seen this.
I have never seen it.
I've never seen it.
Andre's never seen it. You've never seen it.
So
Luis
Luis has seen
literally
it.
just watched it 3 weeks ago by
And
himself.
he said he loved it.
Yes, he said he liked it.
So I guess we're going to watch it. So listeners, let us know if you've seen this movie. Honestly, our Netflix Disneyness is dwindling down because of Disney Plus coming out. So we're trying to pick things that are on Netflix that y'all can enjoy with us. And guess what we're enjoying? Bedtime stories.
Well, and here's the deal. Take it with a grain of salt. It's probably not going to be an A++ movie,
Meh,
but
Possibly
it's
not.
Fun, though.
Disney. It has Adam Sandler. That means there's going to be some laughs. It also means it's going to be corny. So just like
It's
put
Adam
that
Sandler.
put that in your brain.
Gear up for corniness.
Be ready for that.
Bonnie Collins.
But there'll probably be good music because I feel like all the movies Adam Sandler's in, there's good music. So
That's
I'm
true.
going to go with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
It came out in 2008.
Jeez.
A while ago. Yeah.
I was in the high schools. Actually, we were all in the
I
high
think I
schools
had
except
just
for
started
Luis.
high school.
You just started
I
high
graduated
school?
in 2011.
God, you're so
Oof,
little, young.
Ugh.
God.
I married a baby.
8, 9, 9, 10. Okay, I started high school in 2007. So
You were in
Oof.
high school. See?
Anyway, if you want to keep up with us in the meantime, go to social media. We're
did
at
you just say, "Oof, you're a baby"? You're married
Oof,
to
you're
me.
I said I married a baby.
Cradle Robin.
You can keep in touch with us on social media. We're at the Walt Pod on everything. We're everywhere. We're all get us on a podcasting platform of your choice. We're now on Anchor, and on Anchor.fm, you can send us a voice message. So if you don't want to send it an email or a DM, you can go to Anchor.fm/thewaltvault and send us a voice message.
That's the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
That we can play on the show.
Okay, do it.
Well,
Crazy,
and thank
right?
you to everyone who's been commenting and being like super engaging
Yes.
on Instagram
We
and stuff.
appreciate your
Yes.
engagement.
We love hearing from you. We've had a couple different people send us funny stuff, and we really appreciate it. Miss Erin, Divine Introvert.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
We appreciate your funnies. Keep sending them.
Hello, Apper.
Apper?
Yes.
Apper.
So keep sending your stuff, guys. We love hearing from you.
Send it in. Send it on up. If you want to help support us, you can do so at patreon.com/thewaltvault, where we put up after shows and our notes and all kinds of other stuff when we feel like it. Tell your friends about us. You know, tell anybody that loves Disney about the show. That really helps us out a lot too. Subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review, do all of that super fun stuff, and we will be even more appreciative. All right, that's been it for this time. See you next week for Bedtime Stories. The Vault is now closed.